Welcome back to Unlocking My Potential. I'm Natalie Thompson, and today I'm sharing an episode from a different podcast that I think you guys will love it. The name of the podcast is If She Can Make It Here from Amplify Her Foundation, which is a nonprofit supporting women and girls from underserved communities to become changemakers. In this episode, the founder of Amplify Her Foundation, Marti Speranza Wong, talks with Reshma Saujani, who is the founder of Girls Who Code and Moms First, about barriers keeping girls out of STEM, the need for social entrepreneurs, and Reshma's founder journey. I'll be back soon with more interviews of amazing women in STEM as I'm taking a short 3-month break. Enjoy this episode, and if you love this episode, please go check it out, their podcast for a lot more amazing women.
Welcome to If She Can Make It Here, Amplify Her Foundation's podcast featuring New York City changemakers and champions of gender equity. I'm Marti Speranza Wong, founder and executive director at Amplify Her Foundation. Today we're joined by Reshma Saujani, founder of Girls Who Code, founder and CEO of Moms First, and a tireless champion for women and girls. Reshma helps shift the narrative around women's leadership, urging women to move beyond perfectionism and pursue brave action. We're grateful to have Reshma Saujani here today. Reshma, welcome to the show.
Thank you for
Thank you for joining. We'd love to start by going back to the roots of your leadership. In 2010, you did what you described as the unthinkable. For the first time, you went off script by running for public office. Although you share in brave, not perfect, and had been your dream since you were 13, until that point, you had stayed safely tucked behind the scenes of politics. What sparked that decision, and what lesson from that experience can be shared with women who are scared of taking risks and terrified of failure?
Listen, I always wanted to serve. It's funny, in my generation, the icons, the people that were making a huge difference were politicians. Not so much anymore, but that's how it was back then. And my parents had come here as refugees from Uganda. They had lost everything. Part of it because the Indian community didn't have their political rights in Uganda at that time. So seeing the impact on my family and also seeing how much this country saved my parents' life, political service was the way that I was going to give back to this country. And then what often happens, I think, for people is like life happens. And I graduate college and now I got to pay off my student loan debt. And now I'm here in New York, and New York's a really hard place to run for office. And time was just passing me by. But I was just, miserable, because I knew I was one of those kids who knew what they wanted to do. Like, I knew I wanted to run for office from the time I was a little girl. And then here I was in my early 30s and my dream was disappearing. And so I took the plunge and I ran for office. And, there's something about, Marti, doing something when you're too naive to know any better. I often think the older you get, the harder it is for you to take these bigger risks. But when you're young, I was young. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a platform. I was nobody. I had nothing to lose in running against an 18-year incumbent. And so I did. And I lost terribly, but it was the best experience of my life because it freed me. And it also helped me not have regrets, because at least I tried to achieve my dream.
You've written, I believe our perfect girl hardwiring is also a significant part of the reason women are underrepresented in leadership positions in the corporate world, in government, and elsewhere. If failure isn't an option, then neither is taking risks. That right there is how perfection strangles bravery. You describe bravery as a muscle. The more you work at it, the stronger it becomes. So how can we practice bravery?
It's not even like running for Congress is a good definition of bravery. Because I think when we think about bravery, we think saving a baby from a burning building, running for office, doing something that is just terrifying on a big scale. And I think bravery and building a bravery muscle is learning how to be brave in your everyday life. And so what I mean by that is, like, when you're walking down the street and someone bumps into you, you don't say, I'm sorry. When you're in a meeting and it's time to ask questions, you build the muscle to throw your hand up in the air before you know exactly what you want to say. The bravery to end a relationship when it's no longer serving you. And the reason why I think practicing bravery, especially in these everyday moments, and I really have felt this deeply this year, because I do think we're living in a moment where there's an enormous bravery deficit. You do not see acts of courage anywhere. You don't see leaders who are acting courageously. You don't see employers that are acting courageously. You don't see everyday people that are acting courageously. We don't have good role models for this kind of bravery that I'm talking about, big scale bravery and small scale bravery. And I think part of that, and I've been thinking a lot about this, is because people have the wrong impression of what it's going to feel like when you do something brave. So when you do something that's brave, I think people think you're going to feel euphoric and it's going to feel like flowers are flying from the skies and the sun is shining and it feels good. No, bravery doesn't feel good. Bravery actually feels like rejection. Bravery is actually scary. Bravery is like my guts in my stomach, like I'm terrified, this doesn't feel good kind of feeling. And we've really never conditioned people on how to feel that way and to feel okay, especially because we're living in a moment where people are uncomfortable feeling uncomfortable. And so I really think that's why it's more important than ever to literally practice bravery in your everyday life, in these small ways of raising your hand, of not saying I'm sorry, of doing the things that you need to do for yourself, because we need brave more than ever before right now.
Absolutely. Your work has pushed us to rethink what true gender equity demands. With that in mind, we wanted to talk about your impact and your vision for systems change. Let's start with your work creating pathways for women in STEM. Amplify Her Foundation's policy platform emphasizes the critical need to strengthen girls' STEM education. While on the campaign trail, you witnessed a severe gender divide in New York City's classrooms and then founded Girls Who Code to close that very gap. From your perspective, what remains the biggest barrier preventing girls from entering the STEM pipeline?
Yeah. Well, everything has changed in the past year because of the attacks on DEI. Up until last year, the amount of progress that we've made had been tremendous. We've taught 600,000 girls to code. When I started Girls Who Code, probably less than 16% of those graduating in CS were women. Today, many universities, it's almost 40%, 45%. When I started Girls Who Code, it was not cool to be a coder. We embarked on a massive cultural campaign and narrative campaign to make coding cool for girls, from partnering with people like Lizzo and Doja Cat to partnering with brands. We did a Super Bowl ad with Olay. And the net result of all of this was that when you turn on Netflix and you put on your favorite teen rom-com, the protagonist is a girl STEM person, and she's the one that everybody wants to be. So we had a massive cultural shift in making coding cool for girls. By the end, we had almost 10,000 Girls Who Code clubs. In every city, county, town, parish, there was a girl learning how to code in one of our clubs. And then over the past year, we've had this enormous attack on places that are dedicated for women and girls. So you've seen the closure of women ERGs. You've seen Girls Who Code clubs, that are now under threat of being shut down because they're in states that no longer allow for after-school programs that are just designated by race or sex or sexual orientation. You see NASA have to take down its pictures of role models like Ada Lovelace. So it's no longer okay to have those pictures. So you've seen this wholesale shift. And one of the things that we understand is that progress can be dismantled very easily. We actually saw this in STEM. The world's first programmer was a woman. We pretty much had gender parity in tech. But then culturally, what happened in the 90s is we introduced the programmer, and coding was something that just boys did. You literally saw, in the span of a decade, massive pushing out of young women and women in STEM. Girls Who Code was really built to reverse that trend. And I used to always be like, what were those women doing back then? How did they let that happen? And I never would have thought in my lifetime I would see the same dismantling of progress. But I'm literally watching it as we speak. We're in a really, really, really scary but important moment where we have to hold the line and make sure that we do not lose the progress that we've so desperately worked hard to make.
Well, Girls Who Code was such a huge part of that. At Amplify Her Foundation, we're proud to be supporting the next generation of girls in STEM, including Mechatronics 13368, the award-winning all-girl robotics team, and the Young Women's Leadership School of Astoria.
One of my favorite schools. Really? Oh, totally. I have so many students who went there. I love those schools.
They're amazing. And we've been working with the robotics team at Astoria for now a couple of years. And we're so excited to see this year a team starting at Twills in the Bronx. And the girls from the Mechatronics are actually mentoring the new Bronx team called the Cheetahs. So it's been really wonderful to see that happen so organically. We have a question from the team captain of Mechatronics.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Sid Tanzim. So we're going to go ahead and play that audio.
As an all-girls robotics team, many of our members have been impacted by girls who code and are going into STEM career paths. As a big supporter for girls in STEM, what advice would you give to young women who are working towards a STEM career?
Well, 1, never give up. And 2, bring somebody along with you. And 3, build something that's going to make the world a better place. I think that there's so much change happening in the world right now, especially with AI, especially with innovation, especially with the fact that for us, you went to college and there was a job there for you. And now there's so much more uncertainty and lack of opportunity in the same way. And so I think it's really, really, really important for us, for young women, to not let their spirits get down and to build that sense of competency and resiliency, which means that having your sisterhood and having your network of other girls is more important than ever before. And I think the second thing is being able to figure out how can you become an entrepreneur. I spent so much time trying to figure out how to get my girls opportunities at Microsoft, at Google, at Meta, at Tesla. And I realized that oftentimes when places are built without us, they're hard to change. But what we can do is we can build our own companies. We can build our own industries. We can build our own solutions. We can build our own startups. And so how do we teach you how to be entrepreneurs? And that's why I think failure and grit is so important. I am so grateful every day when I make a mistake, when I don't do something right, when I stumble, when I struggle, because it allows me to then go back and be like, okay, what did I learn from this? So I'll give you an example. I used to hate watching myself on television. I just didn't like it. I was just judgmental. Everything from my hair looked weird, or the outfit didn't look right, or why did I stumble over that word, or I said too many times. And I realized, though, part of my job as an activist, as a leader, as a social entrepreneur, is to be an excellent communicator. And the only way that I could become an excellent communicator is if I listen to myself. And so I made myself do that, even though I didn't like it. And then that way I could be my own critic. And I made sure that I hired people around me that were comfortable telling me that I wasn't great, that I had to do this better, that I stumbled here, that I could say the story a little bit, because they too were invested in me being great. To me, being really comfortable with failure, with criticism, with feedback is so important in this moment right now.
Now let's talk about Moms First and your work on the care economy. After your experience as a mom during the pandemic, you started fighting for a systemic solution, stating there's no gender equality without affordable, accessible childcare, period. What moment made you realize that the care crisis wasn't a personal problem, but a structural one?
I had my second child during the pandemic, and there's something about having a COVID baby that, I don't know, revolutionizes you. You just see it in a way that I never saw it when I had my first. During the pandemic, I had to go back, rebuild Girls Who Code from scratch. About half the girls that we taught were under the poverty line. And so many of them had mothers that were essential workers. And I saw that September that instead of going to college, they had to stay home and take care of their siblings because schools were shut down and daycare centers were shut down. And their mothers were, quite frankly, keeping us all alive. And I really saw how, because we have a broken structure of care, how that creates a generational cycle of poverty for girls and for women. And I realized that if my job in this lifetime is to get as close to gender equality as I possibly can and equity, that if I don't fix the structures that keep pushing women and girls out, then I wouldn't have solved anything. And what do I mean by that? We forget that 75% of high school valedictorians are girls. The vast majority of those getting their bachelor's degrees are young women. The vast majority of getting their master's degrees are young women. But when we become mothers, all of a sudden it changes. And suddenly you see a growing pay gap. You see a growing poverty gap because when you become a mom, you get a motherhood penalty. Men get, 6% more every time they have a child. We lose 4% of our salary, right? So there's a massive impact. Motherhood actually has a penalty. And part of the reason for that is because we've never built workplaces to work for moms. And if women are the ones who are going to be doing 2/3 of the caregiving, if you live in a country, the only industrialized nation that doesn't have paid leave, and you got to go back to work 2 weeks after having a baby before you've even physically, much less mentally recovered, you're never going to financially recover. If we live in a nation that's the wealthiest nation that puts the least amount of money into childcare, and 90% of your paycheck goes to paying for childcare, and you're in a family where you both look at the bills and you say, okay, you're making this and I'm making this, and the woman's always making less and the childcare is always too high. Guess who has to basically downshift their career? Us. And so the impact of not having paid leave, childcare, workplaces that are set up to look like the school days, all these things, flexibility, right? The impact of not having this means that women will never in America achieve their fullest potential. We will never achieve our educational potential. We will never achieve what we're meant to achieve because we're living in a system that has been designed against us. And I saw that very clearly. And I built one of the most innovative nonprofits in the world by making a lot of mistakes and learning a lot and trying a lot of things. But by the end of it, I had a model that I knew that I could take and scale or solve any problem in the world. And so I wanted to take the things that I had learned at Girls Who Code, how to build a brand, how to communicate something that people don't fully understand, how to hire an excellent team, how to raise money. I had learned some things that I knew that I could take to this issue about childcare and paid leave, an issue that we've been trying to solve since the beginning of time. So I decided to leave my baby, step off of being CEO of Girls Who Code, and start another organization. The first one almost killed me because I thought that was a great idea.
Well, that was so brave. And it's so important. In your book, Pay Up, you wrote about this big lie, the false belief that women can have it all if they simply work harder and lean in, when really having it all is just a euphemism for doing it all. What needs to change to create workplaces where women can thrive?
Yeah, we have to stop trying to fix women and fix the structure. Like, we're good. And so much of the mass marketing towards women is made to make women feel that they're not good enough. So it's like, here, read this book about confidence. Here, power pose before you start your meeting. Here, learn how to negotiate having a raise. It's all directed at, well, something's broken with you. And so much of social media amplifies that. I thought for so long before the pandemic in particular, the pandemic was like a gift because we all got a window into everyone's life. And we're like, oh, it's not just me. Your house is messy too. You know what I mean? Your kid's like screaming and misbehaving. Your husband didn't do the laundry either, right? So like you realize that it's not that I'm not balancing my life in the way that I should and I'm a failure. It's that I'm set up to fail. And I think we all, 40 million of us, have this collective aha that then was game changing. And so I really want to shift the conversation from being about fixing women to fixing the structure. So when I go speak at companies, I was like, listen, I want you to throw your ERG booklet into the garbage. Stop inviting speakers to come here and train women up. We're good. Actually, spend the time on trying to figure out why your company doesn't have better childcare policies, better paid leave policies, fight for flexibility, programs that are going to help elevate women in their voices, but stop giving us more. We don't need any more skills. We're actually good. The data bears that out, right? We need affirmative action for men, not women. We're graduating college at the top of our game. The brightest people that are entering any profession are women. So why do we then suddenly think that we have to fix us the minute we enter the workforce? So to me, it's a con. It's a con to create insecurity. It's a con to make us question ourselves. It's all about power and domination. And I think we have been playing into this game. We've been used as pawns into what I call a con, into thinking that there's something wrong with us. I did a big speech at Smith College a few years ago about imposter syndrome and how you often have, I'm a little bit of a nerd, so like you can look at moments in history, like when you see an influx, you see a growth of women's progress, and you'll often see something happening in the culture at that time that is pulling women down. We're living through one of those moments right now. And it's so funny how, again, we're living through this moment and I feel like I'm the town crier being like, guys, come on. The sky is really falling. But we're living in this moment right now. Years ago in the 1990s, there was this term called bicycle face that came out because the bicycle was a way that was accelerating women's progress and their ability to travel to suffrage meetings to get their vote. And at that time, this term bike face came out to discourage women from riding a bicycle because it was like all these posters of women looking like their face smashed, looking unattractive. And again, the goal was to get women to stop riding their bike because if they stopped riding their bike, they wouldn't be independent and wouldn't be able to travel on their own. The same thing happened in the 1970s when imposter syndrome came out. Now, 1970s was a bellwether year for women. Title IX, Roe v. Wade was decided. Women were entering the workforce in droves. And you suddenly have a term that enters the lexicon that is, again, making women question whether they belong. I cannot tell you, I've not been in a meeting where I've asked, has anybody not done something because they've had imposter syndrome? Every hand is raised. So the amount of businesses that haven't been started, the amount of women who haven't run for office, the amount of books that haven't been written, the amount of hands that haven't been raised because of promotions, because of imposter syndrome, we couldn't even count all of the lost opportunities. We are living through another moment. It's more women than men getting their bachelor's degrees, more single women buying homes than men, more women having autonomy over their own bodies before the latest Supreme Court decision. So it is a bellwether, a historical moment for women's progress. And now we got to look very carefully at this moment and see, well, why are we seeing on our Instagram feeds ad after ad after ad encouraging women to be trad wives? Why is that happening right now? Why are we giving women this false narrative that they have to either be a trad wife or they have to be a girl boss, none of which are attractive? Either you have to hustle your way to exhaustion or you got to go on a farm and milk a cow. Really? Those are my only two choices right now? It's a strategy, especially at a moment where women and people feel so depleted and exhausted.
Instead of using this moment to organize and reclaim the progress that we had made and lost. Back in 2022, New York City Council passed legislation to create the Marshall Plan for Moms Task Force based on the movement you founded. What lessons from your organizing here in New York should serve as a blueprint for the rest of the country?
4 years ago, we started the movement to get where we are at here, where you have a mayoral candidate that won on running on universal childcare. We started talking about childcare as not a personal problem, but an economic issue, an affordability issue. Workers can't work without childcare and businesses don't work without workers. And so to me, I'm so proud because when we started, I swear to God, I'd go into rooms and people just look at me like I was crazy. And I would walk out and I would feel so depleted because oftentimes, I don't know, I'm always a little too ahead. And sometimes it comes to bite me in the ass, you know, and sometimes I had enough, right? And I was like, is this another time where people just aren't ready for what I'm trying to explain? And seeing so many others run on childcare as one of their top issues and it resonate and you win elections because of it. Again, a blessing that we get to see kind of the fruits of what we started in our labor over the past 4 years and really helping ignite this place that we're at right now.
Moms First is creating a documentary about the history of motherhood in America. Mothers have been invited to participate in the film by contributing their own stories as associate producers. What myths about American motherhood do you hope to dispel with these stories, and how can that reframing translate to real action?
When I started embarking on the fight to understand American motherhood and why is it so broken and why are we so divided when we all have the same experience and want the same things? Today, you may think that the trad wife, girl boss binary is a new thing. And I'm like, no. We did this in the 1900s, but back then the flapper was the girl boss. And so take people through a historical journey of how this has been a strategy that has been employed from the beginning of time. And then really trying to understand, well, why? What's the point? And the point is, if they keep us divided, if we don't see our similarities, if we keep fighting about whether it is, you know, in the MAHA movement about vaccines, not vaccines, if it's about breastfeeding versus formula, if it's about working, staying at home or going, we have all these like orchestrated divisions. And when I sat in living rooms of so many moms across the country that voted for Donald Trump, that voted for Joe Biden, that are socialists, independents, this, that. Everybody's the same. Everybody is the same. And everybody is feeling judged and everybody's feeling alone and everybody just wants what's best for their kids. And you realize, you see it so clearly. Our goal in this film is 1, to tell the story, expose the con, and 2, to really build community. What I'm so excited about, we announced our associate producer campaign. We already are like, I want to break the world Guinness Book of World Records of having the most associate producers on a film, because to me, it's like, this is your story and you have to tell your story and you have to realize that you are not alone. That in telling your story, hundreds of other women say, well, me too. I feel this way too. And I think for so long as moms, we feel like we're gaslit or we're the only ones and we're just doing it wrong. And so to me, this film, this documentary is going to also bring a sense of community and a sense of ownership over your story and your destiny. And that is really important.
We're so excited for the film to come out.
Well, I'm so excited for you guys to be a part of it.
You've built national organizations and movements. At Amplify Her Foundation, we're supporting the next generation of social impact leaders through our Amplify Her incubator. What is the most important lesson you've learned that you would share with those just embarking on their entrepreneurial journey?
I'm so glad you're doing that. I just want to take a minute to really congratulate you, because I worry sometimes that in this moment, I used to get a lot of emails or DMs from young women who said, I want to start a nonprofit. Can I speak to you, Ms. Saujani? I don't get those anymore because I think we've made it so hard for people to make change. We've made it so hard, from raising money to getting support to like even people's interest in actually supporting causes. Like, I'm exhausted every day and I'm a seasoned social entrepreneur who's done this before. So I'm so happy you're doing it, because I ran for office. I lost. I'm like a failed politician. But I realized,
I am too, by the way. I appreciated your storytelling around that, having run in New York City.
Man, you have that together. But then, Marti, you probably feel this way too, because I was like, oh, God had a plan, because I've been able to probably make more change outside of the system than if I had been elected.
100%.
And so we realized we need social entrepreneurs like us, because that's how people get taken care of, how babies get fed and people get clothed and people get educated and people get opportunity. They get access to the American dream. It's not because of the politicians. It's because of the change makers. And so if we're losing a generation of change makers, we're in trouble. So I'm so glad you're doing that. I just want to say, I think it's so important. And I hope more people also think about how they can use their resources to seed the next generation of change makers. I spend my time mentoring and helping, and I hope everybody does. I think the biggest piece of advice, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. It's going to be hard. It's going to be rewarding. It's going to be hard. It's going to be rewarding, but keep going. And I think the question really is how do you not feel alone? One of the things that I'm so lucky, like today, I have Molly and Deborah who are on my executive team, and they're like my sisters in the struggle. So when I have a bad day and I didn't get that funder check, or I feel like something's happening, and I have people to lean on and people to talk to, so I don't feel like I'm alone, because it is isolating. It's all consuming. I keep thinking about, there's a story about Moses, right? And how like Moses never got to the promised land, but he wasn't supposed to. The journey was about the journey. And I think about that. I may die with less rights than I was born with. All the fights that I'm fighting for, I may not succeed. We may not pass childcare. There may be less girls educated in STEM when I die than in those 15 years when we were at our heyday. And you have to wake up every morning and know that that can be an outcome and be okay with that. Knowing that haven't slept that much, or you missed something that you wanted to do for your kids, or you don't get to do the social stuff because you are out there fighting every single day. It can be very depleting, because you can be like, why am I doing all this? What's the point? And so you have to keep finding ways. Like, I watch a Broadway show or a play or an off-Broadway show or a movie that keeps me inspired every 2 weeks. And sometimes I make Molly and Deborah come with me like in the middle of the day, because it's like I have to keep filling my pot.
So important. Well, you've recently celebrated a milestone. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
I'm turning 50 next year, and I loved that.
You better have a big party.
I loved your post about your party and you writing 50 isn't the new 30, 50 is 50. And it's a big deal. And it comes with the beauty of knowing yourself, trusting yourself, choosing yourself. You also talk about the midlife penalty. I was shocked that the biggest pay gap for women is over 50. What advice do you have for women navigating this phase of life?
I've been thinking a lot about this because I think what happens when I turned in my mid 40s was I was like, oh, is this it? Every day felt like Groundhog's Day. And I felt like if I didn't do it by the time I was 40, it was over. Like, better luck in the next lifetime. And to wake up every morning and to feel that way, like I have a lot of women at this stage of my life be like, I don't know what to do. What do I do next? No one has given us a playbook for this second half of our lives. We focus so much on youth. We romanticize youth. If you think about it, the biggest things I should do in my life are now. I have wisdom. I have experience. I have grit. I have a little bit of a no F's attitude. So all these things actually would serve me now to build my biggest movement, whatever that dream is that I have. And what I really want women to do and men to do, quite frankly, at this stage in their life is to really kind of say, okay, what do I want? What do I really want? What do I want to achieve? How do I want to spend my time? What do I want to learn? I know a lot of women that are going back to school and really loving it in a way that they couldn't love it in their 20s. I know a lot of women who, like, for example, forgot how to make friends and need to both end relationships and start new ones. And that's okay. We're learning how to live differently. And my point is like, this could be the main act, like the best part of your life. And that's kind of revolutionary. It's like why I threw my 50th birthday party. So like, I am the person who never celebrates anything. I don't celebrate my birthdays. I don't celebrate when big things happen to me. I'm like, da, 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 da. And I had this nagging sense that I really wanted to celebrate my birthday. And I planned it for like a year and a half. I took 25 of my girlfriends on a girls' trip. I took care of everything. You know, at this stage in your life, as you know, like I have 3 friends who just lost their mothers. I have friends whose children are sick. I have friends who just learned that they have cancer, right? Like marriages that are ending. There's just so much loss and confusion. So they just kind of showed up and I just said, I got everything. You're not going to make a meal. You're not going to pour yourself a drink. I played our favorite hip hop music when we were growing up and we laughed and we slept. And then I threw myself a 50th birthday party where I invited every single, like I flew in my surrogate who had my second baby, my best friends from high school and college. As my husband said, I was ruthless about my guest list and everybody who has helped me be me. And everybody came and we danced because dancing is a big theme in my life all night long. And when I woke up the next morning, I was on a high. But I also felt like I'm ready for, because I was depressed about turning 50. I was not happy, but I'm still struggling with the things that I'm trying to teach. But for whatever reason, having those 2 events helped me close the first 50 years of my life and be like, yep, I crushed it. Like I did it. They were great. And now I'm excited for the next 50. And I had not felt that way until I did that. And it was this big,
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. You've inspired me. As we close, we just have 2 final quick questions for you. Here's the first one. What is one word you'd use to describe New York City women?
Fierce.
And finally, we'd like you to finish the sentence. If she can make it here, she can
do anything.
Reshma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Reshma, we're truly grateful for your vision, boldness, and relentless advocacy for women. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in for this episode of If She Can Make It Here. We'll be back soon for more conversations with New York City's Changemakers. If you enjoyed this conversation, we'd love to know what resonated with you. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and in it, tell us something you learned from this conversation with Reshma Saujani. I'm Marti Speranza Wong. Thanks for listening.